All right, last bit of nomenclature. So nomenclature for acids. So nomenclature for acids, how we name them is based off of the ending of the anion. So whatever is bonded to the hydrogen. There's two different things. You could have a polyatomic ion, or you could have a non-metal anion. Okay, so it really just depends on the ending. Now, with polyatomic ions, we have the two different endings. We have ATE and ITE, and these are named differently. So if you have a polyatomic ion that ends in ATE, then you're going to drop that ATE, replace it with IC, and then add the word acid. If you have a polyatomic ion that ends in ITE, you're going to drop that ITE, add OUS, and acid. Okay, so those are the polyatomic ion options. If it is not a polyatomic ion, it's going to end in IDE. Those are the non-metals off the periodic table. So you're going to drop that IDE. You're going to put hydro out in front, the name of the element, IC acid. Okay, again, you're going to use the element name brute in the middle there. So the only one that you add anything out in front of the name for the acid is those non-polyatomic ion ones, the ones where you only have a non-metal. All right, let's go ahead and do some examples here. And we picked these because they are some similar in names, but how we name them is a little bit differently. It's a little different because of those endings. All right, so we have these ions here. We have perchlorate, chlorate, chlorite, hypochlorite, and chloride. So again, for our, the first thing we want to do is write out our ion. So we're going to write out perchlorate. Perchlorate is a polyatomic ion, and actually these are all right here. Remember, these are ones that only differ by an oxygen. So perchlorate is ClO4 minus 1. To make the formula for the acid, we are always going to add hydrogen out in front. So hydrogen is +1. So we're going to add hydrogen to our perchlorate. So hydrogen is +1. Perchlorate is -1. So we just need one of each. So HClO4. Now, for our name, we have ATE ending. So for an ATE ending, we are going to change it from ATE to IC and then add that word acid. So this one is going to be perchloric acid. So again, we're changing that ATE to IC. Okay, next one we have is chlorate, ClO3 minus 1. Again, this is an acid, so we're going to add hydrogen out in front. Hydrogen's +1. Chlorate is -1, so one of each, HClO3. We have AT ending, again, same thing, ATE, so we're going to change it to IC. So chloric acid. Next we have chlorite, ClO2 minus 1. Again, acid formula, start out with that hydrogen. We have 1 + 1 and -1, so just one of each. Now this one ends in ITE. So because it ends in ITE, we are going to change that to OUS. So chlorous acid. Hypochlorite, that is ClO minus 1. Put that hydrogen out in front. Again, it's +1 -1, so just one of each. We have that ITE ending again, so hypochlorous acid. Hypochlorous acid. And then for our last one, chloride. That's just chlorine. Chlorine is -1. Again, we have +1 -1, so just HCl. Now, for these ones that end in IDE, that's the one where you have to put the hydro out in front, root of our element, ic, acid. So for chloride, it's going to be hydro out in front, put your root, chlor, IC, ic, acid. So hydrochloric acid. That one might sound familiar to you because we use hydrochloric acid quite a bit in this class. So you're going to see this HCl often. Okay. Now, when we are creating these formulas, so that whole chart was -1. All of those anions were -1. If they aren't -1, then it's just like kind of making an ionic compound. We're going to cross those charges to make that formula. Okay, these are not ionic compounds. They are a different section. It's acids, but it's very similar because they're made of ions essentially. All right, so here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to go down and I'm going to do the naming first of formula, and then I'll do the formula to name. So hydrosulfuric acid. So when I'm looking at this name for this acid, I'm looking for, does it have hydro out in front? And then is it IC or OUS? So if it has hydro, it should have IC on the end. That means that this is made up with sulfide, that IDE ending. Sulfide is -2, just sulfur -2. Again, because this is an acid, it's going to bond with hydrogen. And then just like with an ionic compound, we're going to crisscross. So we're going to have H2S. So that is hydrosulfuric acid. Next problem, we have acetic acid. Acetic, again, IC ending. There's nothing out in front. Okay, so because there's nothing out in front, it's just IC. That means that was an ATE ending. So that is acetate. If you look on your chart, acetate is C2H3O2 -1. Again, bond it with your hydrogen. And it's 1 and 1, so just HC2H3O2. Now, I want to mention with acetic acid, yes, we have these hydrogens in the acetic acid formula. Make sure you leave that hydrogen out in front. Don't just add it into the formula. This hydrogen out in front is telling you that this is an acid. Okay, so leave that hydrogen out in front and leave the formula of acetate alone. Okay. And side note, this is actually what causes the smell in vinegar. So if you smell vinegar, it's actually acetic acid. All right, next one we have is hypochlorous acid. So we have chlorous on the end. This is hypo, not hydro, so we just leave that alone. So that means this is hypo, and OUS is ITE, hypochlorite, okay, which is ClO -1. It's on your polyatomic ion list. Again, we're going to match it with hydrogen. Cross your charges. So HClO, one of each. All right, so let's look at these where we're going from our formula to our name. So the first thing you want to do when you have these formulas is you want to name what your anion is, okay? So for our first one, we have phosphorus, which would be phosphide. Okay, so if I look at this, this is IDE ending. So for the IDE ending, I'm going to add hydro out in front. Okay, add that root. Now with this one, you actually add the OR back in here. And then the IC ending, so hydro out in front, IC ending, and then acid. So hydrophosphoric acid. This one here, SO3. SO3 is sulfite. ITE ending. So ITE ending, we're going to change that to OUS. And with the sulfur ones, you add that UR back in there. So sulfurous acid. So use that OUS. Okay. Next one, HClO4. This is perchlorate. Okay, so we've been just looking at our anions here. So perchlorate, ATE ending. Oops. So we're going to change that to IC, perchloric acid. So remember on these, it's all based off of what the name of the anion that's bonded to the hydrogen is. Okay, so again, if it ends in ATE, we're going to change that to IC. ITE, you're going to change that to OUS. And then if it's ID or an element, you're going to put hydro out in front, root of your element, IC on the end.